now it's time to get our hands into some bath bomb, bath fizzy, bath explosion making. You know, some people have come to me and said bath bomb is a weird negative term and we should come up with something better for it. So if you can come up with a better name than that, please let me know. So we're gonna make two different recipes right now for the bath bombs. The first one we're gonna make is a lavender bath bomb. So everything in it is going to be lavender themed. And I even worked on putting together ingredients to make the color a little bit lavendery. So this is the color and the look of the final product that you'll be making. I even pressed a little bit of dried lavender flower into the top of the balm. So I have, and the batch size for the recipe that we're doing with the size mold that I'm using is going to make 4 bath bombs, okay? So there's the mold. I just wanted to point out an important troubleshooting fact. So bath bombs can be tricky because there's a wet ingredient and a dry ingredient component. And if you don't get the ratios perfect, then you can either end up with a bath bomb that is too flaky and dry, or you can end up with what my husband and I endearingly call bath pucks or bath pies. So they get so wet, or you have so many extra wet ingredients that they end up deflating and sinking down. Now they eventually do dry and they work great in the tub, so don't throw them out, but just know that you've probably added too many wet ingredients to your recipe, and so you'll have to dial that back. And they're also still totally worth using in the bath. They do the exact same thing. It just takes longer for them to dry, and of course they aren't nearly as pretty to look at. So bath pucks. All right, so let's dive into this recipe. And I'm going to start with my wet ingredients. I don't know why, but for some reason I like to get them going first. So I have a little bowl and a little whisk just for that. So it's actually going to be a combination of wet and dry ingredients because I like to combine all my different clays and powdered herbs with my water and oil phase so that I can mix them all together to disperse the powders. So the color that I'm trying to produce is this purplish looking, grayish looking color. It's a little bit tricky to find all natural coloring agents out there, so I'm using different clays and micas to make my colors. And of course I will leave you a link for where you can source all of this stuff. So I'm using a combination of 3 different things to create my color. I've got white kaolin clay, and I've got a blue indigo powder, and then I have a brown clay. So that's just called cocoa brown clay. It's a combination of different minerals that make this nice brown color. And so I am doing a 1/4 teaspoon of each of these. So I get my 1/4 teaspoon out and measure my 3 coloring agents into my bowl. And so these clays, I really like to use clays because since we're working towards trying to make it a perfect ratio of wet to dry, the clays do a good job of absorbing some of the extra moisture that you might add to your bath bomb. But of course, your recipe is going to be more generic than this. It's going to just say that you're going to add 1 teaspoon of dry herbs or dried clays to your batch. So you can take that 1 teaspoon and do what you will with it. I'm doing it, I broke it into 4 different parts. So 3 of those were a 1/4 teaspoon of each of my coloring agent, and the last 1/4 teaspoon is going to be lavender powder. So basically, once you add all of the ingredients up that I just put into my bowl, it equals 1 teaspoon. So I did 4 1/4 teaspoons of different powdered products. Once again, powdered indigo powder, powdered white kaolin clay, brown, a quarter teaspoon of brown clay, and a 1/4 teaspoon of lavender powder. Okay, so now that those are all in my bowl, I'm going to measure out my water phase so that I can blend these all up and disperse the color into my waters. So I don't need much water. Really, it's very important that you follow the instructions for this one. 2½ teaspoons is enough liquid. So 1, 2, and 1/2. And there is you're going for a certain look and feel of your final product, so you can always add more water at the end. And of course, if you don't have access to lavender hydrosol, you can always just use something like distilled water or aloe vera juice. Anything liquid is a really good option for this phase. And then I have some homemade lavender infused oil. Since this is an infused oil course series, of course we have to add our lavender infused oil. So there is actually 2 tablespoons of infused oil that go into this recipe. And of course, as you know from making your infused oil in an earlier video, they are, time consuming and costly to make. So bath bombs that are made with infused oils should come at a little bit higher of a price point because they contain a more expensive ingredient. So 2 tablespoons of lavender infused oil is going into my water phase. And this is actually really beautiful. I have a little yin yang going on in here. So now I'm just going to stir all of my wet ingredients together. The goal is to hydrate all of my powdered ingredients. If you were to just kind of throw all these things into your dry ingredient phase separately, you would have a harder time creating the color that you want. This is the same concept for coming up with colors for making soap as well. You always want to get a little bit of your wet ingredients and combine them with your clays and all of your natural colors ahead of time before you put them into the bigger batch or the final combined ingredient phase. This way they're fully dispersed. So right now it just kind of looks like a charcoal black, the combination of the blue, the white, and the brown. Once you spread it out within the big batch, it does turn into that nice purple color. So we're gonna just add one more ingredient to our water phase, and that's our lavender essential oil, of course. So we're doing 30 drops of our lavender essential oil. Okay, and always check when you're about to pour your essential oils into something and measure it out by the drop that you do have your orifice reducer still plugged into the top of your essential oil cap, because sometimes companies or suppliers will not provide that, and then when you go to start counting your drops, you end up pouring half your bottle in, and that's way too much essential oil, and it's a terrible waste because essential oils are a little bit pricey. Okay, so stir that in, and now we've got our liquid phase all ready to go. And we're gonna put that aside while we combine all of our more active ingredients. Okay, so this is where the batch size really comes into play. We're going to be doing baking soda and cornstarch and citric acid, and you can choose from whatever type of salt you want. For this one, I'm going to be using Epsom salts because lavender is so relaxing, and Epsom salts are really high in magnesium, so they're really good at helping to relax the muscles. The goal or the theme of this bath bomb is muscle relaxing, calming, soothing. I mean, lavender is just known for being such a wonderful calming herb. So that's why we are creating this with the Epsom salts with that high magnesium content. So the main ingredient is baking soda, and we're going to do a whole cup of baking soda. Again, make sure you're really measuring out your dry ingredients, giving maybe even just a little bit extra, because you want to ensure that you have a good ratio of dry to wet. So 1 full cup of baking soda, and I want to do the citric acid next, just because these two are our active ingredients. It's the combination of baking soda and citric acid that creates that really fun explosion in your bath. If you've never seen a bath bomb in action, it's not a scary explosion, it's a really fun explosion. Okay, so this is a 1/2 cup of citric acid. All the way to the top. There we go. Basically, after you measure out your baking soda, everything else is a 1/2 cup. So a 1/2 cup of citric acid, a 1/2 cup of Epsom salts. This is not the best bowl for pouring, okay. Ah, it's raining salts. Okay. All right, that works. And then cornstarch, 1/2 cup. Double check your recipe to make sure you've got everything in there. Baking soda, citric acid, Epsom salts, and cornstarch, check. And then you've got your wet ingredients ready to go. At this point, I like to put on gloves, especially because I am pregnant. So if you are pregnant or if you're highly sensitive, essential oils and handling them with your bare hands can be really overly sensitizing. And not all essential oils are safe to use when pregnant. So lavender is definitely safe, but I don't want to touch it with my bare hands. And of course, it's always nice to take into consideration when you're making products for others that the essential oils that you're using are safe for everyone to use. So before I combine my wet ingredients, you could use a whisk for this, but I kind of like to just get my hands in here and combine all my dry ingredients, like so. If there's any clumps, break them up. And then you're going to combine your wet and your dry. And do it nice and slow because there is water in your water phase. There's your hydrosol, which is a essential oil distillate. And that will cause a reaction between the baking soda and the cornstarch. So you will already start to see things fizz. And that's why you want to go slow and you want to constantly turn your ingredients into each other as you're combining this all in. And then I usually grab the rest out of there by throwing some of my dry ingredients into my bowl. Like so. And then you just mash it all together. It doesn't take too long. And the goal is to come up to this consistency where when you squeeze it together, it holds, but it also breaks apart easily. So you don't want it to be so wet that it just is holding really, really well. You don't want it to be so dry that it's not making any shape or creating any form. We'll see what that looks like in just a second here. Get all the excess oil and water off of my gloves. I'm starting to see it clump together. That's a good sign. It means everything's getting nicely dispersed here. Okay, so let's check our texture. I take a bunch and I squeeze it together, but it also breaks apart nicely. That's good. It actually feels like it might be a little too wet to me. I'm just gonna add a tiny bit of baking soda. Just about like 2 teaspoons worth. Actually, let's just start with 1 teaspoon. So it should feel like the consistency of wet sand when you're done with it. Yeah, okay. Okay, so now we're going to mold this. And this is when it gets to that fun decorative part where you can add your lavender flowers. So you take one of the sides of your mold and you just do a little pinch of lavender in the bottom, like so. And then keep that nice, and at the very bottom, let gravity just do its job. And then you're going to pack your ball, your half ball, half sphere, and then you're going to pack the other side. And I always like to overpack them. You can just press it down gently and then have excess, because then when you squeeze them together, you really want to push, because you really want to condense your ingredients. To make a nice solid ball that will hold shape, you want to press and make it nice and snug. So that's why you have all that excess ingredient. And then voila, you've got your pretty little lavender cluster and you've got your ball ready to go. And then you bring it over to your parchment paper and let it dry. So again, a little pinch of lavender, overfill your mold. Same thing on the other side. And yeah, you want them to be really packed. Go. It's always on the line with the last one, whether you're going to have enough or not with this size recipe. Sometimes it works out great and you end up with 4 perfectly sized bath bombs, and sometimes you kind of run out of ingredients for this last one. So I have found that if you really want to get that 4th bath bomb out of it, you can sometimes just throw in a little bit more of your dry ingredients and you should be okay. But again, you might end up with a ball that's a little bit drier at the end, in which case it might look like it's a little bit more kind of crusty, but this looks like it's going to be enough. Yeah, 4 balls. Okay. And there you have it. So that's our first recipe. We have a little bit of extra at the bottom of the bowl, but before we make our next round, we need to clean all of our equipment. So there's a little bit of powder left in the bottom here. Not much to really do with. If you do have a tiny little mold, you can try to stick that in there. Otherwise, it's just kind of fun to watch it fizz up in the sink and then pour it down the drain, which can help unclog your drain, which is a nice side effect. And it smells really good. So we're going to reset and then make our chai spice St. John's wort bath bombs in just a moment. And we're back and we're all cleaned up and reset, and now we're going to make some really pretty pink bath bombs. I just love these ones. So this is a combination of, well, it's going to be a chai spice bath bomb, first of all. And so getting in the spirit of the season, of course, it's going to be very warming. The herb powder that I chose to use is ginger powder, because chai, of course, the 3 main ingredients in a chai are pepper, cardamom, and ginger. So I chose ginger powder for the powdered herb, and that will be nice and warming. When you have something like a warming pungent like ginger that's touching your skin, the action is called a rubefacient. So what it's doing is it's heating up the surface of your skin, which is causing blood to come to that area, which can be really good in the winter time because we're so cold that we kind of go internal and our circulation slows down and we get more sluggish and our limbs aren't getting as much activity. So to add a warming pungent like ginger to a bath bomb will help to promote more circulation out to the extremities while you're sitting in your nice hot bath. Same with the essential oils that we're going to be using. We're going to use black pepper and ginger and cardamom, just like how you would for a chai. So those are also all very warming, pungent herbs. So again, this is a great winter bath bomb. It's good for the season. It's good for the cold weather. It's, of course, my favorite time of year to be taking lots of hot baths. So I also went with a pink color because we're using our infused St. John's wort oil, which you learned how to make in our infused oil class. And of course, to stay with the theme, I'm going to use pink Himalayan salt as the salt ingredient. And I also promote the color a little bit more by using a pink kaolin clay. So again, I will of course be leaving you all of the different ingredient links in the course. So everything else pretty much is the same. The water phase also will be using aloe vera juice this time. So for the lavender ones, we used a lavender hydrosol. Now we're going to be using aloe juice. Just wanted to show you the dexterity or all the different options that you have for using or for what you can add to your water phase. Also, a fun little decorative thing that I did at the end was I added a little bit of beautiful gold mica, which is this one here. So that I'll show you how to do that at the end. So it smells like chai. It's got the infused oil of St. John's wort. It's bonded together with aloe vera juice. It's got the ginger plus the ginger, black pepper, and cardamom spice essential oil blend for that really warming, rubefacient, circulatory stimulant aspect. And then the pink Himalayan clay, which is just all of these wonderful salts are so important for the skin because they allow you to soak in those great minerals. So having a nice, strong mineral bath to soak in can help with certain skin conditions to help bring your skin back to a more balanced state. It can help with things like eczema and psoriasis potentially. So definitely putting salts in your baths is always a great thing. So we're going to again start with our water phase. Okay. So I'm going to start by putting my clays in. I know I keep saying water phase and then I start adding dry ingredients, but you know, as we already know from what we learned in the previous batch, we like to add our coloring agents and our herbal powders to our water phase so that they can be fully dispersed before they get added to all of our other dry ingredients. So I'm going to do, remember, it's 1 teaspoon total of dry herbal powders and clays, or any powdered coloring agents that you're going to use. So I'm going to break that in half right now and do a half teaspoon of ginger powder and a half teaspoon of my pink kaolin clay. And that's it. So it's a little bit more straightforward of a powdered combination than the lavender one was, because the pink is a lot more easy to achieve with just that lovely pink kaolin clay. Okay, now we'll do the waters. So with this one, I'm going to start again with 2.5 teaspoons of my aloe vera juice. And 2 tablespoons of my infused oil. I always pour away from my labels because otherwise you'll end up with drips running down the sides of your bottles and messing up your nice homemade labels. All right, and then finally we're going to add our essential oils, and 30 drops total, so I'm just going to do 10 drops of each. My cardamom has an orifice reducer, so I can just count those drops out. And remember, the lavender came out a lot slower than that, so you also have to watch for that when you're pouring essential oils. Some of them pour a lot faster than others, so just try to work with a steady hand. And both my ginger and my black pepper do not have orifice reducers, so one great tool that it's always good to have on hand are little extra plastic pipettes. Or if you happen to have, you know, the glass drop tube from one of your old tincture bottles, that can work too. But you grab up your essential oil here and you just, again, count it by the drop. 10 there. I do reuse these. I wash the outside with soap and water, and I get as much hot water on the inside as possible. I feel like that does a pretty good job because I don't like to use plastic when possible, or I try to use as little as possible. So you can reuse your pipettes if you feel so inclined. And black pepper. So the last essential oil I added was ginger, and here's the black pepper. And these are very spicy, strong essential oils. So unlike that last batch we made with the lavender, which is pretty much safe for, you know, children, I wouldn't say infants, but children and pregnancy, lactation, I would not so much advise using this bath bomb for pregnancy and lactation and for young children, because the essential oil complex is really, really spicy. So if you're ever curious whether or not you're going to have a reaction to hotter, warmer, or more sensitizing essential oils, you can always test them on a patch of your skin. I did some nettle harvesting yesterday and I'm covered in little red dots from all the stings. But yeah, this is a sensitive area, hence why I still have red dots from getting poked with nettles. And you can always test any product that you're worried about whether or not you're sensitive to. You can always test it here. And if you have a reaction, then it's best to just avoid that product. Okay, so now we're going to stir together all of our dry ingredients. Okay, and I'm going to set that aside while I put all of my other ingredients in the big bowl, starting with our 1 cup of baking soda. I'm going to go for a heaping cupful, so I'm going to do a little bit more than that. There we go. And citric acid, 1/2 cup. I'll just go for the rest of that. Okay. And a 1/2 cup of my pink Himalayan salt. Definitely one of the more messy projects that you'll be making with me. And a half cup of cornstarch. Okay, that's my dry ingredients. Give them a little toss with the hands. Okay, and again, slowly pour in your wet ingredients, stirring as you go to try and keep the reaction of the water and the citric acid to a minimum, and grab all that excess water in your bowl with some of your dry ingredients. Okay, and mush. Okay, my table's making lots of noise. All right, check your texture. Wet sand that crumbles. It's looking pretty good. Okay, so get your molds out, and here's the part where we decorate with some gold mica. I have a little tiny, it's called a dash, just a tiny little spoon. You really don't need much for each round, but you're going to kind of coat the bottom of your mold with your mica, like so. And then you're going to pack one side and pack the other side. And this combination is really convincing. It definitely smells like a chai spice blend, which is so satisfying. And you got your nice gold top, and set it over here to dry. So I go for a little bit of mica each round on this. Wiggle it around down in there so it gets spread out. Little mica. Okay, let's see if we can get one more out of this. Come on, 4. I have my doubts. Oh, maybe. Actually, it looks like we will have enough. It's so funny when you get to that last bath bomb, you're kind of like, is it gonna be enough? Is it gonna make the cut? Whoop. And it is. Look, we're looking good. Doop. Oh. Okay. Well, we thoroughly made a mess of our workspace here, and we have successfully made 8 bath bombs, 4 lavender and 4 chai spice, with 2 different types of infused oil and a bunch of different fun herbal powders and clays. So that's how you do bath bombs. And again, you can end up with too dry or too wet of ingredients, and it does happen. So just keep going and you'll learn about the texture and how it should feel in your hands the more you make. Bath bombs are just such a fun project. They're so rewarding. There's so many different great combinations of ingredients that you can use. I definitely encourage you to come up with some unique combinations. Go with stuff that you see online. Go with stuff that just comes out of your own heart and your own creative energy. And a great project to work on with kids, especially if you're wearing gloves, just to protect everyone and keep everyone safe, but makes a wonderful gift, and they're really satisfying when you use them in the tub. So I highly recommend you get yourself a nice warm bath drawn and enjoy some of your bath bombs for yourself as well, because there's no better time than winter to really go internal and become a little bit of a hermit crab and hang out inside your shell and just warm up your body and relax yourself with some nice bath bombs. So enjoy the process. Don't forget to share all of your photos and stories with us on the comments underneath the course. And yeah, happy bath bombing.